Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 12th school committee meeting. The meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 p.m. on Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 37. We'll start the meeting with a roll call. Ms. Roach? Here. Mr. Conroy will be late. Mr. Catalano?
Present.
Ms. Soul?
Here.
Mr. O'Reilly, our student representative. Mrs. Gustafson?
I'm here.
We are here. Why don't we start, we don't have teacher representatives tonight, why don't we start with student representatives and then we can go through our action items. Drew?
The football team had their season opener last Friday night, and all of the other fall sports teams are beginning their games. PSATs are on Saturday, October 14th at 8 o'clock a.m. Field trips are already beginning. The outdoor pursuits class is going on a field trip to a ropes course located at the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department on September 20th and 21st, and the first half day is tomorrow on September 13th.
Great. Thank you for the reminder on the half day for tomorrow. I appreciate it. Great. Thanks so much. Jody, do we have anybody signed in for open session? No. Thank you. We have quite a few action items. There are some that are on here that I'm purposely going to skip over because we'll move the approval of those meeting minutes to the next meeting. So we have a consideration to approve the 8/29/17 school committee meeting minutes.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the August 29, 2017 school committee meeting minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to skip over the 1/24/17 meeting minutes. We have a consideration to approve the 2/28/17 working session school committee meeting minutes.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the February 28, 2017 school committee meeting minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're also going to skip over the 6/20/17 item and move to the consideration to approve the 7/13/17 working session school committee meeting minutes.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the 7/13/2017 working session meeting minutes.
Can I have a second?
Second. Oh, second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did I hear some ayes over to the right?
Yes.
Oh, jeez, aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have a consideration to approve the, what should be 7/20/17. Is that right, Jody?
Correct.
Okay, working session school committee meeting minutes. I'll take a motion to approve those.
July 18th, please.
It should read 7/20.
7/20.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the July 20th, 2017 school committee meeting minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will skip the 7/31/17. I'm going to defer us until Mr. Conroy arrives for us to have the consideration to approve the reduction in fees for Metro West basketball. Next, we have the consideration to approve the FY17 recast budget.
Madam Chair, in your package you have a copy of the recast budget as we closed out FY17. April, you, our business manager, is currently working on the end of your report, and this is how we ended the year, having $1.09 left.
So the $1.09 is what we have to return to the town as unused fees, current fiscal year 17.
Correct.
All right. So I will entertain a motion. Does anybody have any questions on the recast budget?
Madam,
Sorry, I should say no.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the FY17 recast budget as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. I'm also going to defer the consideration on the school adjustment counselor. Let's just wait for Mr. Conroy to arrive for that discussion as well. We can move to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As mentioned, tomorrow is our early release day for September. Teachers will be further deepening the work we started at the beginning of the school year in personalizing learning by developing their individualized student profiles for each student, and that is just great work that everybody's really enjoying, and pulling together a lot of good information about student interests, aspirations, their learning styles, and as well as academic information, data on where they are, that we're busy pulling together through STAR math and reading assessments and other common benchmarking assessments to get a good profile for each student. And the teachers will be then sitting with each student, and the students will be also compiling some of this information to help us really meet their needs and personalize what we're doing. So we're very excited about that. We have busing is settling in. As I mentioned at our last meeting, we had, the week before school started, we had 380 students registered, and then the week school started, we had 486. So in that last week, we had 100 students registered for the bus, which puts a real burden on trying to finalize routes. We now have another 50, over 50 students for a total of 543 students. Last year we ended the year at 547 students registered, which we will exceed that this year because we pick up kids along the way during the school year as winter approaches or the fall athletic season ends. So we will be working and bringing to the committee some recommendations for next year as to how to encourage people to register early. Personnel-wise, we're still interviewing for 5 or 6 positions. A long-term Spanish substitute for 7th grade Spanish, a reading tutor at Clyde Brown, a part-time kindergarten teaching assistant at Clyde Brown, the .4 ELL teacher. We've had a few interviews, and the .6 special educator at the high school is still open. We also have the stipended position of a 21st century careers coordinator that Mr. Mulaney and I will start interviewing next week for. So there's still some final things to settle in for the year, but overall it's been a great start to the year. You also have in your packets your September enrollment. Now, keep in mind September enrollments are never as accurate as October, November, things settle in. But what is significant this year is that while we have 15 fewer students overall in district and out of district placements, 14 of those are due to a change we had to make in the preschool program where we have the significant students with needs. So we had to make their program a full-day program, thus eliminating the afternoon class for Barbie Carr. So there's a full-day program for the students with significant needs. So 14 out of those 15 students are due to a reduction in our preschool numbers. We have 15 more choice students than we ended the school year with, which is significant and surprising, actually. So even though there are, for example, at Clyde Brown at the elementary level, because we have 102 in our kindergarten class, which is a good strong number, and we're pleased with that, and we like to be around the 100 students per grade level. So Clyde Brown has 12 students more than last year because a small class went up to the middle school. So the middle school has 19 fewer students than last year. Finally, in your packets, you also have the potential warrant articles that we can submit to the town for fall town meeting, which is on November 6th. These are, two of them are left from the spring when there was not sufficient funding to fund these. The top one, the auditorium repair for broken seating and some lighting and perhaps audio, but seating is the priority for this year. This is part of our 3-year plan of $55,000 per year for the auditorium to address the needs. And so that is a significant need. The seats are, if we replace even a section of them, we can then utilize those parts to repair some of the other areas. So that is a high priority. In terms of instructional resources, we were able to purchase some of the social studies materials at the end of the year that we had originally asked for, maps and globes and things like that, because they were so out of date. But our social studies committee is meeting and rolling along. We have good representation from all the buildings on that. And you have the detail of about $25,000 in social studies materials, instructional resources that are still needed that the committee will make sure are aligned to the frameworks and to purchase the materials needed for instruction. That is K-12. And then the other additional smaller cost of $9,600 is for the Unified Arts. Our Unified Arts teachers are usually a very small group. So for example, we only have 2 music teachers and 3 art teachers, 1 video production teacher, 4 PE teachers. So they need actually the time to develop revise and align their curriculum maps and identify what the needs are there. So this is the $9,600 is for curriculum development time for staff for a combined request of $34,600. The establishing the bus lease stabilization fund and then funding that bus lease stabilization fund are also from last spring. You have should be at the end of your warrant article packet some additional information from New England Transit and then the pricing, the 2 bid forms that show that purchasing 1 bus at the end of the lease, the 77 passenger bus is $40,000. If we were to purchase the 83 passenger snub nose bus, which is safer because of greater visibility for the driver, able to see right in front of them without the nose of the bus blocking their view of any small children, and it is a larger bus, that would be $45,000. So I put in the recommendation for the committee to consider of $90,000 for 2 of the snub nose larger buses. Finally, there is the replacement plan of a special education van, and that is to replace a van with more than 150,000 miles, which is rotting and rusting and will probably not pass inspection. So the was I going to say? Oh, the only other piece of information is that the town meeting warrant closes on the 28th. So they were gracious in making it 2 days after our next school committee meeting. So if need be, we can also consider these at the next meeting, since this is really, for a couple of them, the first time you've seen them, or if you'd like more information.
Questions on the proposed warrant articles?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Conroy.
first, sorry for being late. The instructional materials, I'm not opposed to leaving the full 34.6 on. Have we ever included development time in a warrant article before?
We have,
Okay.
yes. I forget which year. I can go back and look.
Okay.
But it had the stipends we pay teachers has been a warrant article.
It might be a good idea, not even for next time, but as we go through the fall to have examples of when this has been done before. Like I said, personally, I'm fine putting it up there, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some questions about real capital fixed books type stuff versus
Right.
paying time.
And the other thing is, I do believe, fall town meeting is typically for emergency types of capital items, but
And one other question, just a reminder, when are we due to have to purchase these school buses?
the lease ends this year, so it would be
So
spring
between
town
November
meeting.
and May's town meeting, we would need the full 90,000.
correct.
Okay.
So I can check the exact date when they come due. I'm sure they would hang on to them a little bit for us, but
No, I just wanted to make sure,
I
like,
think it might
it's-
be June 30th
it's-
when it
it's
is.
this
It says on
year.
the bid form, too.
Okay.
The bid form says,
June 30th,
I just
correct.
wanted to confirm it's this year. So really
Yeah.
what we're going to be asking is either fund 90 now, fund 45 and 45, or you got a $90,000
Spring.
bill in the spring.
In the spring, correct.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Conroy.
I would make a motion that we approve sending these 5 articles to the Board of Selectmen for consideration to put on the November warrant.
Second.
Further discussion? It's been moved and seconded to move all 5 to the Board of Selectmen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's where our articles. If we go back to our action items, we jumped around a little bit just so that we could make sure we had everyone here for some of the discussion items. Can we revisit the consideration to approve the reduction in fees for Metro West basketball? As a reminder, in the spring, Metro West basketball came requesting a reduction in fees for the use of the facility. There was a discussion that the committee had at the time. We talked about a 50% reduction in the fees that they currently pay. And we did vote at the time. We do need to re-vote that item. So I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Conroy.
I would make a motion that we approve a fee reduction in the amount of 50% on the hourly rate for Metro West basketball for the upcoming 2017-2018 season. So it'll run from September through, they have December here. But I would extend, they've only got up to December, but I would extend it to Yeah, I would extend it through February, with the whole entire season.
We don't have the dates for February
Yeah,
yet,
but it'll run.
the
Do we want to do it
vote
for
can
just a
carry.
12-month period? Is that,
No, because.
it'll run into the next season?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just a comment, if I could. So we often discount fees for programs that benefit the students that are taught here in the schools. So this is a basketball program, it's wellness, it's fitness, it's physical education all at the same time. And so we're committed to a well-rounded students, and that's why we've discounted the fees. We do the same thing for the rec department and other organizations that come to meet with us.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Aye. I'm only
Aye.
abstaining due to, not that I'm not in favor, just due to some form filings that I haven't had a chance to do yet.
Me as well.
Motion carries. And next on the agenda is the consideration to approve increase to school adjustment counselor position.
Mr. Phelps, would you join us? I have asked Mr. Phelps to join us this evening, I almost said this morning, but this evening as the person who is living the wonderful start of the school year and also the increase in the demands for the MSBA project, and can speak to it best.
Sure. So the rationale for this proposal actually comes from three different specific items. First of all, our district is committed this year to enhancing and developing a tier system to support the social emotional learning. At Clyde Brown, we began that process 6 years ago with the PBIS program. That's a program that really benefits all students. It's called Tier 1, in that it impacts everybody. However, there are students that need more prescriptive programming, and because of their needs, they need a very specific kind of individualized and personalized plan for helping them to be successful in school. So one of the reasons for the increase in the school adjustment counselor position would be to allow the current .7 school adjustment counselor to devote more time to, as we begin to expand and implement the tiered systems of support, it would be essential for the school counselor to be on board with this. Her role is integral to the success of the program. Another feature that's kind of connected to this is the office referrals that are generated through PBIS. I know that you have in front of you information that kind of outlines for the past 5 years the number of referrals per month. What's interesting is that we have clear data through school year 15-16. School year 16-17 was incomplete. There was a reduction in the time available on my part to help deal with students on a one-to-one basis. Part of that was due to a change in practice in the way that was carried out. A large part of it was due to the fact that as the school building project comes on board, myself and the superintendent are required to be present at meetings that at which we're required to kind of make split decisions so that the project can move forward. So that would be another reason for consideration, that in order for those students who need that individualized attention, it's important, if I'm not there, for somebody to be present in the building to, especially with young children, to be able to address have the conversations right away. If you have a lag time, then you've lost that teachable moment. So it's essential to allow our students that opportunity. Another concern that is listed in the rationale is the fact that when we talk about safety and support for all students and staff, that is the principal's role, and I welcome that role. as part of my responsibilities, there are circumstances that do pull me in different directions, that kind of leave nobody sitting in the office, so to speak. I mentioned before about the increased meetings that are now coming on board for the school building project. There are other meetings and necessary administrative tasks that contribute to that as well, and I've outlined those in the rationale, among those being school day administrative team meetings that are essential to have the administration of the district connect to discuss ongoing district initiatives, to help formulate the vision and keep leadership going. MCAS administration is another one. It's mandated by the state. And as I sat down to take a look at data for each grade level, combined it takes about 40 hours of preparation, of distributing tests. I alone, by the state, recognized as the test administrator. So a lot of my attention during that time period is consumed with that. The addition of these computer systems that's happening this year requires that I physically be in the hallway with a laptop, being able to problem solve, which doesn't, it leaves me unavailable to kind of assist in the matters in the building. So and that does leave, concerns on my part for if other children need my assistance, if staff need my assistance. It makes it difficult, and increasing that load would certainly benefit students greatly and staff. The third compelling rationale that I've listed deals with, as we've discussed before, the fact that the exciting building project's coming online. As I was putting together this data, my inbox rang, and I got notification that we now have weekly meetings of 2 hours at a time, which again, it's really necessary for the project to go forward, but my concern is that my absence in the building does create some difficulties. So I'm trying to be proactive in thinking ahead and having the ability to have another administrative present during those times. Do you have any questions?
Questions, Madam Chair? And do you have just an estimate of the cost of the 0.15 FTE? Yeah.
Oh, you want to speak?
0.15.
Well, I guess it's 0.3
It was
total. 0.3.
14,000.
It was in our last packet.
14,000.
Okay.
Yep, so,
Thank you.
but that's for 0.15, so I guess
24,000.
that's a question that I have, is when we met 2 weeks ago, we were asked for a 0.15 adjustment counselor and a 0.15 assistant principal. I see the agenda item. The item on our agenda says adjustment counselor.
Oh.
The rationale we were proposed says assistant principal 0.15, but then also says 0.15 and 0.15 school adjustment counselor. So are we still, is the request still for 0.3 or is it for 0.15? And if it's 0.15, which position is it that
So
we're
the
asking for?
phrasing is that we have a current school adjustment counselor at 0.7, and we would like to increase her position to full-time. So it is a 0.3 increase. So it's the increase to her position. That's the phrasing on the agenda. 0.15 of it is, as we further discuss this and deeply delved into what are the supports needed at Clyde Brown, both for students, families, and staff, a portion of it is school adjustment work. But at the elementary level, the delineation between what an assistant principal does when there's a problem on the playground and an assistant principal does the interviews of the children involved and the peers that may have witnessed it and then makes follow-up phone calls to parents, it's really semantics whether that's school adjustment work or assistant principal work. So it's there are certain tasks though that are clearly assistant principal assisting with MCAS protocols, packing up materials, things like that, that would be a great help. So there is a gray area, which is why we've kind of split it in half now, because really some of what we were talking about needed at Clyde Brown is the social emotional learning action plan work that is being undertaken, and follow up with student behaviors in a, we don't discipline at the elementary level like a dean of students at the middle high school level might mete out some discipline for infractions after having worked with the kids. So at the elementary level, everything's a learning experience. So do you want to add to that?
When you take a look at a .15 position, that's about a half a day, maybe a little more than a half a day. In looking through data, the addition of the 1.15 adjustment counselor and .15 assistant principal, I feel is an accurate representation of the needs as they are at this point. And I think that, again, we're talking about the safety of students and the availability of families to have an administrator available and to look out for the safety of children, particularly as the project commences and we begin to have more, a reconfiguration of traffic in the Spring Street lot. It's going to be essential to have one administrator in the front and one administrator in the back, just simply for safety, for people crossing, for kind of keeping an eye on those logistics.
I'm trying to remember when those things come online as far as that reconfiguration. So in the best case scenario, the fence would go up in November. And do you lose part of Spring Street when that fence goes up?
That's right.
Okay.
I believe the area is the part that's right in front of the canopy.
Okay.
So that's going to necessitate a
Sure.
different configuration.
Yep.
And we've already started working on that, but the reality is it's difficult for me to be in two places at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, and the addition of those extra working group meetings did come out today. So those are now, they used to be bi-weekly, now they're weekly.
Okay.
So that's something that's different from how they were run from the beginning of the project until today.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm wondering if there's a suggested source to fund this. Has that been discussed?
Our hiring savings that we went through last meeting is
The suggested source.
more than sufficient to cover this, yes.
I see. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, so the concern that we had with this when we talked about it as part of the budget process for this year, we addressed it again in June, and now we're addressing it again in September, August, was it didn't fit into the budget process because of the shortfall that we had, as well as the $200,000 excess school choice that we were using. So that at the time was a 0.5, didn't elevate to the top. When we looked at it again in June, the request was a 0.3. We still have the same $200,000 shortfall, didn't really have a revenue source at that time. And the understanding a lot as it pertains to the meetings, which may, if that changed today, but at the time it was definitely there's a need. That need is going to come. We probably have a year before we need to worry about that. Now we have the hiring savings, which was $143,000. We appropriated $36,000 of it last meeting for 0.4 ELL and a half-day kindergarten paraprofessional, which were immediate needs, like they had to be here in order to do what we needed to do to provide services. We held on the assistant principal, adjustment counselor. The other request was to add a TBD paraprofessional back into the budget. We deferred that, and so the money's just sitting in choice. My concern about adding staff, and that's one of the questions I had, was what has changed since the previous 2 times we've evaluated this to say now we should not be as concerned with the $200,000 school choice shortfall and wait to see how the budget comes out for next year so we can build it into next year. So I guess that's my question, is what is different today than it was the previous 2 times, other than the fact that we have hiring savings that we could allocate it to. We also spent, as a committee, some time over the summer, and we've talked publicly not only about the high school maintenance, but broader capital planning. And a discussion, part of the discussion last week too, was do we incorporate this hiring savings into a broader discussion about and evaluate it, not just on what staffing we may need to be able to bring, but other things that we, if we're going to spend it at all, which there's in my opinion, a strong case not to spend any of it given school choice and our budget shortfall last year. But if we were going to, should we weigh this against the other concerns about capital maintenance planning and things like that? So that's kind of why it got deferred from last meeting to this meeting. 1, so we could have everybody in the room. 2, so that we just had some things to think about.
So we want to start with the first part of that, which is maybe what, if anything's changed from June to now?
So, Madam Chair, the 2 things are hiring savings were greater. We're not finished with the hiring, but we projected at mid-level hiring for each of these positions that are still open. So that should average out. We don't expect any of those positions to tip us over. So we were surprised at how great our hiring savings was. And then the only other thing that I guess, we could have predicted 2 other things. We could have predicted the ramping up of the requirements of MSBA. For example, late today, I know Jason and I both got a PDF that you need a microscope to read of room numbering that we have to review. And things are, we're getting sometimes, less than a couple days turnaround time where we have to respond. So we could have predicted that, but, and we did originally request a full-time assistant principal when we put together the preliminary budget as one of our critical needs, and then reduced it to the 0.5, and now we're down to the 0.3 or the 1.5 actually of assistant principal duties. And then the other thing is the strength of our choice numbers, which should bring in $75,000 more in revenue. I've asked April, you, our business manager, to, between now and our next meeting, to finish estimating, now that people have turned in all their paperwork, what our lane change savings will be, if any. So that we'll have that by next meeting as well.
So I guess what I heard were changes in our revenue and funding stream, not other than the change in the meeting again, not so much in the workload or what's going on.
Well, in our preliminary budget books, the red, white, and blue sheet, it was a full-time assistant principal requested. And then as we realized that was not going to be possible, I think our next proposal was for a 0.5. So the need has been there. Actually, it's been there for a couple of years, and now I'd call it a critical need, a dire need that the students, the families, and staff, our principals are instructional leaders. They are not just business building managers, and without having that kind of support, Mr. Phelps is not able to be the instructional leader that he could be. He's increased his visibility, his availability to families and staff, more open door as much as possible, and he'd like to attend data team meetings more and the PLC team meetings. So those are critical to, looking at our achievement gap and improving our reading scores.
Madam Chair, this isn't a surprise. We've been talking about the need for this position for a very long time, and the fact that it's come up so many times in the past just few months, handful of months, I think just goes to show the ever-increasing need for it. I think the question is if now is the moment, if we have the funds to support it, and if we want to take a look at a bigger picture view. We want to fund it now or a bigger picture view in a couple weeks from now. I think that's kind of the big question in my mind.
And I do think the one component, the change between June and today is the ask. Was the ask in June 0.3? Or the ask in June was higher?
Isn't it? As Nancy said, it was
think it was
0.5 in June.
Yeah,
Then it was
so the ask has been reduced. Just as another component of delta between then and now. So from a spend perspective, we have a decision that we want to make about this, but like you mentioned, it plays into a bigger discussion about spending that hiring savings, if we want to spend it at all, if we want to spend it on this, or if we want to take a step back, take a look, and then see what our spend plan would be based on if we're going to get an additional, if April is going to do a lane change review, if she can recast school choice based off the enrollment numbers. I don't know if the last school choice numbers that we got included all of the new school choice students.
No, because those go in our October 1 report to
Okay.
Department of Ed, so they will. The estimates we have that we provided last meeting on school choice were based on the end of the year rather than current year, end of last year. So that, but it should, 15 more students should be about 75,000 more.
Madam Chair.
So,
My concern is just Jason's time working on the new school project. I think we can't underestimate how many little questions he's asked throughout the day and then these meetings. I'm just worried about he's being pulled in too many directions, and I feel like that's probably one of it's fueling this continued request for the additional assistance. I don't know how long we can wait, basically.
other thoughts?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Phelps.
I appreciate your support in the statement, but it's really not about me. I've been doing this job for 6 years. I've enjoyed every minute of it. But my concern is that the forward progress and the movement that we're making is going to be compromised because I'm not in the building, because I'm not available to attend the things that need to be tended to. So it's not, with respect, it's not so much about me. It's more about the kids and programming and families' availability. You're used to, immediacy in communication, and I think they deserve that. So from where I sit, that would be my priority. Thank you.
So where are we coming down? Are we going to vote on the position increase tonight?
Do we want to make a motion, or do we want to wait and gather more information? Can we get a gauge of a temperature from the committee? Sensing some awkwardness in the room.
I have to say, I haven't yet been in a meeting where
There's some awkwardness.
Not even awkwardness, I'm trying to figure out next step on where we go from here. Because, yeah, go ahead,
Madam
Nancy.
Chair, if I
Yeah.
may just add, I think if this were adding a full-time position, I absolutely understand the hesitation to do so until we have a full, plan developed for addressing the choice overspend, we'll call it, overspending or too much reliance on school choice for our salaries. It's less than 14,000 now that we're into the school year. We do know.
But it's 28.
It's 28.
I'm okay. It's 28 total. Okay, so less than the original ask now that we're into the school year, and I think, as we say, the need is pressing. Looking at our fiscal picture right now, I think we are in good shape and will be able to put together a short-term plan to address the choice problems. So that's.
Does anyone
But I
recall
can't make a
whether we,
motion.
does anyone recall whether we stepped down the lane component on the budget?
I believe we brought it down as low as humanly possible in order to
Yeah.
cover.
Because we knew we had the deficit.
I think we brought it down. We
No,
can double
we
check.
did not.
We didn't bring the
We did
lane
not
piece down.
reduce-
We talked about it.
We
for
didn't
sure.
dip into
Talked about
that
cutting it.
because,
The year before, we definitely did.
well,
But I don't know what we did in this.
But we had a close to a $200,000 shortfall that we had to come up with
Right.
from our level service budget request for this year. We did it. Part of doing that, not even part of it, we solved it without increasing our deficit to school choice, but that's a $200,000 deficit. So when I'm looking at this, I'm saying we could be sitting here 6 months from now with a $400,000 shortfall that we're trying to figure out. And again, I don't like that we're necessarily going at and looking at one specific request, but this is a request that begs the question of how far into, we haven't stopped and said, we were presented with a spending plan of 96 of the 143 in hiring savings. We as a committee spent a lot of time at the end of last year and a lot of time this summer saying that we wanted to be evaluating what's going on a broader perspective. That included capital purchases as much as it did staff. And to your point, we haven't said, do we want to spend? We've already spent 36 of the 143. Do we want to spend the 107, or would we rather see our current year school choice deficit go to 100,000 instead of 200,000? Okay, that's question one. Then question two would be, okay, if we're going to spend any of the 107 that's left, do we want to evaluate what true capital, non-salary, not that nothing can't be reduced, but staff is much, you reduce staff last. So do we want to add staff with money that we know we've already spent? Or if we're going to spend it, do we spend it on one-time things? So I would say if we were going to do what we said we wanted to do, we'd be having those discussions first. And then have a discussion on specific positions if that's where we ended up. But I'm one of five.
Is this something we have room on the agenda to cover next week? Because I don't want this to be, something that's 2 months down the road. We're reconsidering it.
26th is our next meeting. I don't know if we have room on the agenda.
We have MSBA CHIPS requirements on the 26th on the agenda list.
And those are suggested topics.
I won't be here on the 26th, not that you can't have that discussion without me. I don't want to hold it up. I'd like to be there, but I don't want to hold it up, so. So additional information that we would want to have in order to be able to have this discussion and get to a conclusion, I guess is my question. So it sounds like a recasted school choice based off of, even though we don't report it until October 1st, we have the numbers. So could we recast that so that we can see what our projected amount is for school choice? And then if we take a look at the lanes, just so we can have a full picture of the numbers that we're discussing.
Yeah, if we wiped out the 200,000 in deficit,
Yeah.
and then we're in a different conversation as it relates to the first one that we talked about. Then we're into, okay, if we're going to spend any of this, how much, if any, goes to capital, how much, if any, goes to staff?
Yeah.
We've at least crossed one of the hurdles off.
Yep.
And then an updated list, Nancy, that the list of needs you provide at the bottom of that red, white, and blue sheet. I'm assuming that this won't be on the top since this has come up so many times. I'm assuming this is a pretty immediate request.
At the administrative team level, we took a look at all of those that were left on the red, white, and blue sheet, and the funding for the technician is on there, and the assistant principal, those were the two highest, and then the next was a high school social studies position, but now the schedule is developed, and I checked in, we discussed it with Mr. Mulaney. Even if we were to hire right now, it's the schedule is set and the kids are in classes, and it would be hard to add personnel, and we really don't have the space for the teacher, even if we could hire that teacher. So that drops lower, much lower on the request list. The other two things that are still on that that we do consider priorities, or not as high as this, but math and reading specialists at the middle school level. We have 2 reading specialists and a math specialist at Clyde Brown that we share a little bit of their time at the middle school level, but those are still needs. So I can update that.
And we've been able to, this is the first time, at least this is the 4th year now, I suppose, that I've been on the committee. It's the most number that I've seen that we've been able to fulfill with end-of-year savings and with hiring savings. The largest number that I've seen come off of that red, white, and blue sheet on the bottom half. So that was a positive. And to Mark's point, a lot of those, some of them are one-time spends, but others are staff, which roll right into the operational budget and are going to have perpetuity, per se.
So for the next meeting for the 26th, it's important that we have 3 voting members to be here. I'm actually going to recuse myself from the vote on this one for personal reasons. So we just have to make sure you 3 are here if we're talking about it.
One other thing, and if it's either write-up or some, I'd like a little bit more, given that the change in the meeting schedule and the impact just came out today, somewhat of an understanding of how that impacts for the building project, that the time requirements have changed and what that potentially means. So is it really, Jason has to be out of the building once a week for 3 hours, or, and just what is the new schedule and how is that different than the schedule that we thought was going to exist, which drove us to think that we had until at least the next budget cycle.
Yeah, I'd like to request an assistant superintendent as well. to add to deal with the CHIPS requirements, et cetera.
So on the sheet that April puts together, we should have a completed, because I think there was some modifications we had to make to the FY17 choice to close out
Yeah.
what we started with, what we brought in, and what we spent out of it, a breakdown of the, not just of a grouping, literally a
Right.
breakdown of the different positions or different items that were purchased out of that. And then the same thing for FY18, realizing that we may have a pretty good idea, it may be more than just projections, but projected revenue. And what we need is what she feels the projected balance will be at the end of the year. We don't need what we think the balance will be as of September 30th. That means nothing to us. So, and once again, they're projected, so there's flexibility, but that remains pretty solid on how we get the money in and how much we spend. So breakdowns of the positions, not just one number. Let's see what we have.
The individual
Yeah,
salary costs
absolutely.
that we're covering out of.
Yeah, a point something this, a point
Yep.
something that.
So the updated.
With the balance at the end of the year, what we think, because that's really the important number for us.
So I have an updated choice revenue projection, and that would, the items that you just mentioned. So the revenue in, what we spent, and the spend would be a breakdown of all the individual salaries that we're paying out of choice. And then also a
And I don't think
projected balance at
there's
the end of the year.
I don't think there's any expenses in there, but if there are expenses, but I think it's just salaries. And then just a revision, because I think the one she presented last time was not completely up to date. I think she had a,
No,
There
it
was
was
some
it
column
was up
at
to
the
date,
end.
but the
The
column heading,
at the end was
the-
kind of the calc on it. We just have to correct that column to
yeah,
the far
that
right.
it was the,
calc.
The column at the
it
end
wasn't a
says
calc, it was the
choice
school
out.
tuition out column, which
Yeah.
was
Right.
not.
we don't need it.
Right.
Right, we didn't need that.
It's
So we can
remaining.
just
Instead of
that sheet.
instead of an ending balance one,
Yeah.
that's why.
Yeah. And that would be based on, that would also include the choice additions, even though they don't get reported until 10/1. If she can do that, because we're meeting before 10/1. So if she can do add the new choice students into that, because that'll have a positive impact. And then I'm just recapping just to make sure that we have everything. And then the estimated lane change savings, if any. And then do we need anything else to support that discussion?
The impact of the meeting
Oh,
changes.
impact of MSBA. Through school year 17, 18. One of the things, it struck me as, I think Nancy, you were mentioning it, and maybe we just have an opportunity to talk to the project team about it. If there are some things that you're getting that are requiring like 24 or 48 hour turnaround times, I'm feeling like there's more ramp to that than you and Nancy both are being allowed. So that's something that I'm happy to raise with the project team, because the words prescriptive process have been mentioned quite a bit as it relates to the project. So these aren't things that are surprises that are coming up for the project team. So I'll shoot the project management group a note just asking them to give, I don't think they're doing it on purpose, but for as much as they can, to give you as much advance notice on those things as possible, to give you as much turnaround time as possible, so that it's not an ask today with a 48-hour turn. I'm guessing that there's some more lead time that they can give you on some of those things. So
Thank
I'll
you.
push for that just to try and, the more time we have, the better. Okay, and if we could add that as a discussion item for the 26th.
Okay.
Just revisit this, if we could put that on the agenda for the 26th, Jody, is the same item could stay on as an action item. I wonder if we want to broaden it, but if you can just put a placeholder for that, Jody.
Say we didn't
Yeah, and if we want to, if we can just work on the title of what it will be. Any other questions or discussions? All right, thank you. Thanks so much, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Subcommittees, I think we still, so we have a listing of subcommittees. That's under the chairman's report.
So, Madam Chair, we've replaced only the name of our current member with the previous member, and other than that, have not made any changes. So however you want to go about looking at those and changing those is of course open.
I think we need to add the school building committee to Ms. Roach's list there as an ex officio member.
Yeah, for you and Denise.
Yeah, I'm already on there.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess yes, Denise as well.
We should probably add to Carrie's to the,
Capital planning.
that one, because I just saw that email right here too.
Yeah, the capital action committee, capital
Yeah, CAC, Capital Advisory Committee.
advisory committee.
Where's that from?
Carrie.
Carrie.
Capital Advisory?
Yeah, CAC, yes, Capital Advisory Committee. I know I mentioned that this, I think at the very first meeting that we had the night before school. I'm wondering if, or maybe it was in the spring, there are a lot of subcommittees that, so some we have on here for when it's time for collective bargaining, so I fully understand those. There are a lot that are on here that don't meet, and I guess I'd like to have an understanding of which ones we are sort of required to have in case something comes up. So I know, like safety sidewalk, I think, like that one's there. We've had some things come up with busing and whatnot that we've had folks allocated to so that decisions could be made as that committee.
Like the budget subcommittee and the fee-based committee, Steve and I were on those for a while, and I think we had them under everybody's, but we just meet as a group now on these topics. I don't even know that subcommittees need to exist anymore.
Right.
Yes, I would agree.
I agree.
So,
Budget subcommittee, and then the fee audit subcommittee.
That's just on the list, Steve.
I think for
Mark,
everybody.
me,
I think everyone.
Jen.
Yeah.
Those are all budget subcommittee.
Yeah.
And then fee-based, I don't know what this fee audit committee is.
That's that, I think,
That's
fee-based
that.
subcommittee, the one that
Yeah.
you and I were
So
on.
the
and-
fee audit subcommittee can go.
It's
Under
just
me.
part of budget.
Yeah.
It's under everybody, I can just.
Carrie. It's not under Mark.
No, under me.
And then under Jen. I also, the Board of Selectmen liaison should go with the chair.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, the Finance Committee liaison should go with the chair too. So last time this list was, I was the chair, the last time this. So take those from me and put those travel with the chair.
Okay. Both Board of
The Board of
Selectmen and
Selectmen.
Finance?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
I think there's
Yeah.
backups, but the backups could be anyone, so I don't even know if you really need a second. I
No,
think it's whoever's
I
available.
don't think we have to
So,
designate it.
under Mark, take out the Finance Committee second. And then I think and then the Board of Selectmen second. Oh, I see what it was. It was the secretary.
Secretary,
and then
yeah.
what was the
Yeah.
chair, so.
Mark, have you been appointed to the Financial Management Committee? Just old.
That's just old,
Okay.
because I was at
When you were
at a time, I was, but you are now.
Yeah.
And I think I came off.
So Mark's off the financial manager.
The financial management comes off, Mark, and goes to you.
It's already on him.
It's on,
Yeah,
it's
it's already
John,
on.
yeah. Is that still, do they still meet, that committee?
If there's something that comes up, we
Okay.
meet. And for a while, we were meeting pretty regularly. But
Right.
there's, with the new selectmen, I think, too, some of them, they're kind of figuring out the new agenda items.
Sure. Okay, so we did a little bit of cleanup. I'm just looking to see.
I mean, I'd be happy to move the facilities under me to Carrie.
I guess I'll take that one.
And what can she give you in return?
She can give me any one of the ones.
I'll trade you that for,
Mark
about
can do
how about
HSA.
what's that?
Mark can do the HSA. Give him that one.
You want to give Mark athletic fields?
That's a good one.
You want to take athletic?
Yeah,
Is
I'll
that
take
even,
that.
is that?
I don't think it is.
Yeah, that's the thing, I think it's defunct
Oh,
at this
yeah.
point.
I'd get rid of it.
Yeah.
I would cross that off too, Jody.
Maybe.
Policy subcommittee.
Yeah.
That's reviewing
We do have
book.
some work we have to do
I'll
with
take that.
policies.
I'll take that.
You want to
I'll take that.
Mark, I'm on that committee. I'm the chair of that committee, so.
Have been for like 3 years too.
Yeah.
Does that come off?
We've done some work on, we've actually done some work on
That comes
that.
off of me and goes to Mark.
Okay, it's already under Steve too these days.
Yep.
He should,
Yes,
Put chair.
He's the chair.
Please.
Lead
He's
chair.
the chair of the subcommittee.
That's correct.
And I think Nancy and I were talking maybe earlier this evening. There are some policies that we will have to draft, read, and adopt as relates to the school building project. So some specifically related to the CHIPS, which is the high performing schools. It's the equivalent to LEED. So it's green building types of items. So there's a decent amount of work that's going to come up on that one.
Okay.
And actually, Mark, I don't know if this is exactly it, but the technology steering committee, we're both now on that with Peter Germain, so take that from Carrie and
Oh,
put
yeah.
technology.
Yep, good point, yeah.
So the technology steering committee.
3 for 1?
Carrying those two,
Mark and I already have it.
you're already on it.
Yep.
I don't see it on mine.
No, you're going to put it to Mark.
Oh,
You're
Adam.
taking it off and Carrie
Picked
and
up
put it
3
to
I
Mark.
already had.
You got policy,
I'm on
tech,
there.
and what else did you get? You only got policy and
There's
tech.
that new subcommittee, is that truly new at the bottom?
Oh, I didn't think you took that.
Superintendent's
I didn't write
evaluation.
it down.
And the homeschool association liaison is,
We have
there's-
superintendent.
yeah, it's listed under you.
I'd get rid
There's
of that.
really nothing other than
It says
if you
super.
Put
There you
over
go.
here, it says
want
It
to
already does. No, but it's already there.
attend meetings
Superintendent.
and then report back and update the school committee.
That's a really, so that's one where I don't believe that anyone prior had gone to those meetings and reported back. So I had never heard of that. So I think that would be a great one for us to represent and to bring back.
What was that
I'm on
one?
it.
The
HSA one.
HSA, the home and school, to actually have Carrie attend those, and as Nancy was saying,
Absolutely.
attend them and report back.
Are you on them? Are you on the HSA?
I am
We all
not. I
are.
am now.
She's the
It's a
liaison.
liaison.
Good job.
Yeah, we're all on the HSA.
So can I make another recommendation, kind of like the all SC members?
Parents.
Even though I've done all that collective bargaining for the bus drivers, cafeteria, and custodians, I say we move all the collective bargaining over to all SC, and then we decide whether it's all of us, or 3 of us, or 2 of us, like we have in the past. I don't know if we should designate individuals. I think that goes over to the right. And then when a contract comes up, then we have an individual discussion about that.
Yeah, we
Okay,
can do that.
Yeah.
of who's available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I
Yep.
like doing the bus drivers and I like doing the custodians. I mean, I'll volunteer for those, but I just think as a rule, we should probably just put them over there. And then as they come up,
That makes sense.
so Jody, all the collective bargaining would come out.
So to that point though, over here it says budget subcommittee under all school committees.
That's right.
That's not that way anymore.
No,
We have a
no,
specific.
that's the new way.
No, we just crossed them out.
Yeah, we crossed all the budget subcommittee from the individuals and it's an all,
It's everybody.
yes.
It is,
Over
yeah.
there is everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
So you
Yep.
can just cross them out on the individuals.
Okay.
All right.
And then,
Okay.
and then the title, just the title
I
up
tried to
top
take good
on the
notes.
sheet, 17, 18.
Calibri 12.
I think I did.
No, you did it up, way up in the
Did in the
header.
in the header.
Oh, well, that's what, 14, 15 is the last time I did this, so you're right.
Yeah.
It's been a long time to make them. Okay.
Thank you.
So we're gonna just talk about it, we're never gonna do any work on it, we're just every year. We're gonna
Move them around.
Shuffle things around.
Every year I continue, every year.
Listen.
I feel like we
changes we just made.
I feel like we accomplished a lot.
Yeah, we
That's some good housekeeping we did.
Also in
Good
your
meeting, good job.
Also in your packets are some recommended topics that, for our school committee dates, but they're truly just recommended based on some of the things we've done in the past and the timeframes that we do them in. But taking your recommendation from last year, at the end of the year, we had the personalized learning showcase all at once at the end of the year. So I'd like to have each school do one, one per month unless, if we can, but not to overburden anybody with it. So I kind of sprinkled them in, and those can be shifted around a little bit if you wish, or any of the topics can be changed. But I thought it'd be good to just have a suggestion. You can email me if you have any other topics you'd like to add to the list.
Can I, the November, I've got 2 back-to-back meetings on the 21st.
No one's town meeting.
And that always happens.
Okay, so
right.
those are actuals. And October didn't change.
Right.
December's good, January's good, February's good, you'll pick March later, April later, May later. Okay. I can edit this for the website, which is wonderful. And then I
Okay.
keep it posted here, so.
Are there any updates on the joint board meetings? We
Yes.
talked about the timeline. Do we have something coming up?
So there has been discussions across the 3 chairs. So the Finance Committee, Peter Germain is currently the chair. They are changing their chair, they just haven't done it yet. So there have been some discussions between Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Germain as current chair of the Finance Committee, and myself, surrounding having those tri-board meetings again. So there is a plan for that. The first meeting, initially we had hoped to have it in August, and when we had the last round of tri-board meetings, the hope was that it would kick off in August. It doesn't look like it's going to kick off until October for those 3 boards to come together. It has been proposed that the initial meeting, the same individual that came and facilitated the earlier meetings, that he'll attend at least the first one of those meetings, and potentially a couple of follow-on meetings. And the 3 chairs are going to have kind of like a pre-conference call to just try and get everyone on the same page and set expectations for that initial meeting. So that hasn't been scheduled yet, but that's something that as soon as that happens, I'll report back out to everyone, let everyone know how that goes.
Super. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Catalano?
we also had talked about having a meeting with, I don't know if it's called the PAC anymore, but
CPAC.
what is it?
The CPAC.
CPAC, is that what it's called now?
Yeah.
Okay,
think so.
CPAC, we should,
Special education.
we
PAC,
talked
I think.
about it, and we should have, at some point, have a meeting with them.
Speaking of which, the open houses, including the special education open house, are coming up. We'll make sure you all have those dates. We have various open houses at Clyde Brown Middle School, High School, and one overall for special education, because often during the regular open houses, people it's so busy and there's so much to see that we have developed one special evening for everybody to come and informally. There's a little presentation and then be able to interact with special education personnel and ask any questions. So,
One for Clyde Brown is next Wednesday, the 20th.
okay,
The CPAC open
Yeah.
house.
thank
I
you.
don't know about the other ones. Anything else? Nancy?
I think Isn't the CPAC one, the special education one, it's K to 12
Yes.
on
Yeah,
the
you're right,
20th,
sorry.
on the
Yes,
20th,
you're right.
yeah.
It is.
It is, but it's
Yeah.
held at Clyde
It's held
Brown
at Clyde Brown.
in the
You're absolutely right.
in the library, yes.
You're
Thank
absolutely
you. No, thank you.
Okay. Subcommittee reports. So we talked about the tri-board. The other update is on the Clyde Brown School project. So over the course of, since we met last, there's been a decent amount of activity regarding the environmental aspects of the project. So as part of having to vote the land swap, so changing ownership from some town park land under school jurisdiction, otherwise known as the Article 97 vote that the town took at town meeting. That process, by design, triggers a form that we have to file with the Mass Environmental Protection Agency. So the project has gone forward, was always planning on filing that, filed that as they were supposed to, and 2 residents in town have filed with the state to review the filing and also ask for a larger scope of environmental review. So what that does is that triggers, I call it MEPA, Mass Environmental Protection Agency. It triggers MEPA to do an investigation, write a report, and then review that. So the director of the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs will make that decision. Part of that involves community feedback. So if you've seen some emails or Facebook posts regarding community feedback, that period actually ended today, September 12th. And then last Friday, there was a site visit where the individual from MEPA, the caseworker that has this case under her domain, came out to Millis, met with 2 individuals that had filed the item with the state, along with 5 members of the project team. Nancy was in attendance, I was in attendance, Kerry was in attendance, 2 residents, 2 residents that were in favor of the project were there, and an additional resident that seemed to be neutral to the project was also there. And it allowed the individual from MEPA to gather feedback from that group, to get an overview of the project, and to also see the site itself. It was, I would categorize it as kind of an open feedback session for the state. And the individual is just writing lots of notes so that she could go back and then write a report and then give that report to the director. So that was her charge. As a byproduct of that, I think some more feedback emails went in because we got some additional information about what they had received to date and how we should actually put a specific subject line in there. So we did an additional push on that. So now we wait until probably the 25th. So on the 22nd is when the director will make his decision. And they'll post it on the website the next business day, which is Monday the 25th. And at that point, we'll figure out what the next steps are. So the potential impact could be that we take additional time and spend additional money on doing a wider environmental impact analysis. So that's the potential impact of their decision. So alongside of this, so in parallel, the project is moving full steam ahead. This week there were multiple meetings with multiple boards across town to talk about site planning, stormwater management, the different phases of the project and how that impacts the environment and the traffic and the phasing and the laydown of construction and trucks and materials and dirt and all of those types of things. So Board of Health, Board of Selectmen, Planning Board is actually, as we speak, are all scheduled for this week. And then I believe at some point they're going in front of the Concom as well. So there's quite a bit of activity that's going on because we're in the permitting process. And the plan is to be through the permitting process so that we can put out what's called an early bid package to be able to get numbers in so that we can break ground still in that November timeframe. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of a lot of moving parts that are happening right now. A lot of work by the entire group of architects, designers, everybody really active. So we will full steam ahead until someone tells us otherwise. As far as people, I've heard a lot of people ask about the pending litigation. The pending litigation is ongoing, And our directive remains to be continue with the project until someone tells us otherwise.
So moving forward, the will of the voters that voted
Correct.
for the project.
Correct. Correct. And with the site visit on Friday, we did try to make sure that the state understood the process that has happened to date, the number of votes that have been taken to date, what the outcome of all of those votes were, the percentage of in favor, both at the polls and at town meeting, and the fact that we voted the Article 97 not once but twice at town meeting, to just make sure that they had the full view and scope of support in town, and not just what they were hearing kind of at that point, and then through correspondence that they were receiving. So we wait and see.
Just one question. Do we have a sense of what, if there were a broader environmental review, what that would include? Do we know what that would include? Or we're just learning at this point?
So I don't know the details of it. I do know that it's a standard impact analysis, so there's kind of a standard process that you go through. The scope of it is time consuming, so it would almost definitely delay the project. So I don't know any more than
That's okay. I was just curious.
Yes.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
No questions.
Okay. School committee announcements. Ms. Roach.
I've got none.
Mr. Conroy.
I have one I forgot to mention. I think I mentioned it at our previous meeting. On the 20th, we're hosting a group of 20 to 25 esteemed colleagues from the Department of Education, retired superintendents, and Dr. David Doctorman, who is a founder of Tom Snyder Productions and software, and very knowledgeable person in the field of blended learning. So we're hosting the coaches, this group are retired superintendents and others that coach new superintendents, and they're coming for a learning walk visit to classrooms on the 20th, and we have some panels set up, teacher panels that they can speak to, and they're actually, at the end of the day, we're partnering each person up with a student at the high school level so that students can talk to them individually about the impact of our blended learning initiative, the one-to-one initiative, and how we use it in service of rigor, relevance, and personalizing learning. So that's very exciting. I welcome any of you to join us as well. We're starting the day at Clyde Brown with a visit to kindergarten classrooms and how they're using their iPads.
Very fun.
So we are actually not going to do working session tonight. We're going to defer that to a future meeting. And we do not have executive session this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.